It's all bad. See, remember, he bought the house, he did all this shit and everything, and took his little advance, and it's not little, of course, it was millions. Took his millions on his publishing and all that shit, and decided to expand and spend. And now you don't have money to fight for your lawyers. The little bit of money that he does have, gave that to the lawyers he does have. Now, those lawyers in Dallas, they are good lawyers. Not finna sit up here and bash him and kick him all over the head. But from what I'm hearing around there, times is cheaper than ramen noodles without the package.
Pooh Shiesty is going broke, and he just watched the very lawyer he hired quietly walk out the door. And not just any lawyer. We're talking about the same attorney Gucci Mane personally connected him with. The guy who stepped in and saved some of hip-hop's biggest names from doing heavy football numbers in federal prison. Now that same lawyer looked at Pooh Shiesty's case, scanned the mountain of evidence stacked against him, and basically said, yeah, I'm out. And before you try to chalk it up to scheduling issues or a simple change of counsel, stick around, because once you understand what's really happening behind the scenes, you'll see why people are saying Pooh Shiesty might be one of the most cooked rappers in the federal system right now. We're talking possible life sentence energy. We're talking Gucci Mane allegedly cooperating with federal authorities. We're talking ankle monitor data, surveillance footage, phone records, the whole package. This isn't looking good. And apparently, even his own lawyer agreed. Let's break it all down. Before we get into why Bradford Cohen reportedly packed up and stepped away, we've got to rewind. Because to understand how Pooh Shiesty ended up here, you need to understand the foundation. Pooh Shiesty, born Lontrell Donnell Williams Jr., is a rapper from South Memphis, Tennessee. He grew up in the Cane Creek Apartments. And if you know Memphis, you already know that environment isn't soft. It's raw, it's real, and it doesn't ask for approval. Memphis rap culture has always been one of the grittiest in the country, and Pooh Shiesty came straight out of that energy. He didn't even take music seriously until around 18, but once he did, it was obvious this wasn't just a hobby, it was survival and ambition mixed together. He started dropping music independently, linking up with fellow Memphis rapper Big 30, and building his name the old school way, grinding, posting, staying consistent in the underground. Then 2020 hit, and everything changed. Gucci Mane, the Atlanta trap legend who helped shape modern rap by putting on names like Young Jeezy and Waka Flocka, signed Pooh Shiesty to his 1017 Records label. From that moment, Lontrell Williams Jr. wasn't just a local Memphis rapper anymore. He became Pooh Shiesty, and the industry started paying attention. That 1017 deal cracked the door wide open. Almost instantly, Shiesty started dropping records that moved. His sound didn't feel manufactured, it felt like the streets themselves were talking through him. Then November 2020 hit. Back in Blood, featuring Lil Durk, dropped, and it exploded. It peaked at number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100. Not rap charts, the Hot 100. That means he was competing with pop stars and global acts right out the gate. Then he jumped on the Beatbox remix, which climbed to number 12. By early 2021, he dropped his debut mixtape Shiesty Season, and it debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200. He even landed on the XXL freshman list. In less than a year, Pooh Shiesty went from Memphis underground buzz to one of the hottest new names in hip-hop. But here's the twist: while the music was skyrocketing, trouble was already stacking up in the background. In October 2020, the same month Back in Blood dropped, he was arrested in connection to a shooting in Bay Harbor Islands, Florida. The allegations included armed robbery, aggravated assault, battery, and theft tied to a marijuana deal gone wrong. He got out on bail and kept moving, but authorities were watching. Then, in May 2021, another shooting incident happened in Miami-Dade at a strip club. He was arrested again in June and held without bond. From there, everything escalated. He was indicted on the earlier robbery case, later pleaded guilty to firearm and drug conspiracy charges, and in April 2022, he was sentenced to 5 years and 3 months in federal prison. At the peak of his rise, he was heading straight into a federal facility. Even while locked up, he stayed active, dropping music through smuggled phones. But after serving roughly 3 years, Pooh Shiesty was released early in October 2025 for good behavior and time served. His lawyer at the time, Bradford Cohen, confirmed the release. Then came the comeback. His first day out record, FDO, dropped the 12th of December 2025 and peaked at number 12 on the Hot 100. It looked like a full redemption arc. He was back. The music was hitting, and the industry was watching again. But that didn't last long. The 10th of January 2026, just 3 months after his release, everything allegedly flipped again. According to federal prosecutors, Pooh Shiesty had become frustrated with his 2017 records deal under Gucci Mane. While he was in prison, the industry shifted. New deals were made, and his original contract allegedly no longer reflected his value. Instead of going through legal channels, prosecutors say he chose a very different route. They allege he set up a business meeting at a Dallas recording studio involving Gucci Mane and members of his camp. But what was supposed to be a business discussion allegedly turned into something much darker. Prosecutors claim Pooh Shiesty and 8 co-conspirators, including his father and Big 30, traveled from Memphis to Dallas ahead of time. Inside the studio, they allege Pooh Shiesty pulled out an AK-style weapon, presented contract termination papers, and forced Gucci Mane to sign while being held at gunpoint. After that, victims were allegedly robbed of jewelry, cash, and personal items. Some were reportedly assaulted during the incident. And here's the detail that hit hardest for investigators. Pooh Shiesty was still on federal home confinement at the time, wearing an ankle monitor. GPS data allegedly placed him at the scene. On top of that, prosecutors say stolen items were later posted on social media. Now, the internet started asking the obvious question: how did the feds build this case so fast? And the answer, according to reports, circles back to Gucci Mane. In the complaint, a cooperating victim identified as RD is believed to be Gucci Mane himself, Radrick Davis. Reports indicate he gave statements to federal investigators early on and continued cooperating. Now, whether you call that cooperation or something else depends on perspective, but legally, it helped build the case. And the evidence didn't stop there. GPS tracking, phone records, surveillance footage, rental data, and witness statements all allegedly lined up. What makes it even more intense is the history. Gucci Mane signed Pooh Shiesty, mentored him, and helped launch his career. And now he's allegedly part of the federal case against him. Then things escalated publicly. Gucci Mane dropped a track called Crash Dummy, which fans immediately interpreted as a response to the situation. By the 1st of April 2026, 9 people were arrested in total, including Pooh Shiesty, his father, Big 30, and several others. Charges: kidnapping and conspiracy to commit kidnapping. Federal kidnapping charges can carry life in prison. On the 8th of April 2026, Pooh Shiesty appeared in court for a bond hearing in Dallas. The judge reviewed the evidence and denied bond completely, stating the weight of the case was strong and that no conditions would be sufficient. And then came another major layer: his legal defense. Pooh Shiesty turned to Bradford Cohen again, the same attorney who defended him in his previous federal case. Cohen is known for representing major rap figures, including Gucci Mane and others in high-profile federal cases. But here's the twist that ties everything together. Bradford Cohen has also represented Gucci Mane in other matters. According to reports, it was actually Gucci Mane who introduced Pooh Shiesty to Bradford Cohen in the first place, back when Pooh first signed to 1017. Think about that for a second. The same man who allegedly cooperated with federal investigators to help build the kidnapping case against Pooh Shiesty is also the man who once introduced Pooh to the lawyer Pooh later hired to defend himself from those exact charges. You really can't script this kind of situation. Cohen came in strong. He officially filed his request to join the legal team on April 6, 2026. But by that Friday, he was already speaking out publicly on Pooh's behalf. He wasted no time going on the offensive, calling out what he described as major inconsistencies in the government's case. He highlighted that the FBI took a full 3 months from the date of the alleged incident before making any arrests. According to him, if the evidence was truly as solid as prosecutors claim, that delay wouldn't make sense. He also questioned the reliability of the initial witness statements and directly criticized the rookie FBI agent who authored the criminal complaint. He pointed out that she was physically present in the courtroom during the bond hearing but was never called to testify about her own document. Cohen called that pure gamesmanship. Outside the courthouse after the bond hearing, Cohen broke down what he believed were the biggest gaps in the prosecution's case. He emphasized there was no contract, no video of any alleged signing, no weapons, no jewelry, and none of the physical evidence the government was referencing. He also pushed back hard on claims that Pooh Shiesty went to a Staples store to print the alleged contract before the incident, suggesting instead that artists commonly print lyrics before studio sessions and that there was nothing suspicious about that trip. To the public, Cohen looked locked in, confident, like a man who genuinely believed the case was winnable. He was doing media hits, legal commentary shows, and consistently challenging the prosecution's narrative at every turn. For a short stretch, it really looked like Pooh Shiesty might have found the legal lifeline he needed. Then, on April 28th, everything shifted. Bradford Cohen withdrew from the case. Officially, the explanation is simple. Pooh Shiesty is bringing in Dallas-based attorneys Dan Cogdell and Kent Schaefer to take over as lead counsel. On the surface, that reasoning makes sense. This is a federal case in the Northern District of Texas. Having local attorneys who know the judges, the prosecutors, and the courtroom dynamics can be a real strategic advantage. It's not unusual for high-profile cases to transition from a celebrity lawyer handling media and early momentum to seasoned local trial attorneys as things move toward the actual courtroom fight. Dan Cogdell and Kent Schaefer are not inexperienced names. Cogdell has been practicing criminal defense in Texas since 1982 and is admitted to multiple federal district courts across the state. These are established, seasoned federal defense lawyers, not last-minute replacements. On paper, the switch adds up. But here's why people aren't fully accepting the official version. Because Bradford Cohen didn't quietly exit. He made statements. Publicly, he still said he believes there are major holes in the prosecution's case and that Pooh Shiesty can win. He made it clear his departure wasn't because he thought the case was hopeless. And that's where things get complicated. Because when a lawyer who just spent weeks publicly attacking the government's evidence suddenly steps down while still insisting the client can win, it naturally raises questions. The official explanation doesn't fully answer. Online, and among people who closely follow federal cases, the speculation is that Cohen may have stepped away because of what the discovery process is revealing. In a federal case, discovery is where the defense gets the full scope of the government's evidence surveillance footage, complete phone records, GPS data from ankle monitors, witness statements, everything. What Cohen was saying publicly was based largely on what came out during the bond hearing, which is only a small portion of the full case file. Once the full discovery material started coming in, the internal picture may have looked very different from what was being presented outside the courthouse. Think about it. From Cohen's perspective, you're a high-profile defense attorney with decades of experience, known for representing major names in the industry. Your reputation is built on managing high-pressure federal cases. If the full evidence starts pointing strongly toward a conviction or even a life sentence, you have a serious professional decision to make. Because losing a case this high-profile, after publicly challenging the government so aggressively, could damage a reputation that took years to build. That's the theory many people are circulating. Cohen came in during the early media storm, helped shape the narrative, publicly challenged the prosecution, and then stepped away once the full scope of the evidence began to take shape through discovery. There's also another layer, the cooperation angle. Gucci Mane, a figure Bradford Cohen has a known professional connection with, is reportedly a cooperating witness in the case. That creates, at minimum, a complicated situation, and at maximum, a potential ethical conflict. Attorneys have strict rules about conflicts of interest, and if prior relationships interfere with the ability to cross-examine a key witness, that alone can force a withdrawal without anything being said publicly. The most widely discussed interpretation comes down to three things. The evidence is stronger than initially suggested. The Gucci Mane connection creates a legal conflict, and the reputational risk of staying attached to a potentially losing high-visibility federal case is too significant. Now stepping back, this isn't being treated like a standard rapper arrest situation where things eventually fade out. This is federal kidnapping charges, and the maximum penalty is life in prison. That's the ceiling. With aggravating factors: alleged firearm use, multiple victims, and a coordinated group involving 9 defendants, federal sentencing guidelines become extremely severe. Pooh Shiesty isn't just one defendant in the case. He is allegedly identified as the central figure, the one who organized the meeting, allegedly provided the weapon, and allegedly had documents prepared in advance. If convicted as the primary organizer of a federal kidnapping conspiracy, the sentencing exposure is about as serious as it gets outside of homicide cases. And the government claims to have substantial evidence: ankle monitor, GPS data placing him at the scene, cell phone records, rental car documentation, surveillance footage from the studio, social media posts from alleged co-conspirators showing stolen items, and statements from multiple victims, including reportedly a well-known figure in hip-hop. The FBI had been building the case for months before making arrests, and by the time they moved, they believed they had enough to proceed. Another major factor is his prior federal case. At the time of the alleged incident, Pooh Shiesty was already under supervised release with an ankle monitor. That makes the allegations even more serious in the eyes of the court, because it suggests the alleged conduct happened while under direct federal supervision. That detail alone heavily influenced the bond decision. The judge didn't just look at the charges, but also the criminal history, supervised release status, and overall risk assessment. The conclusion was that no combination of conditions could reasonably ensure public safety if he was released. That's why bond was denied. Now, with Dan Cogdell and Kent Schaefer stepping in, there is still a legal path forward. These are experienced defense attorneys who understand federal court strategy in Texas. Cases have been won in difficult circumstances before, but realistically, based on everything publicly known, Pooh Shiesty is in one of the most serious legal positions of his career. And the optics of a high-profile celebrity attorney stepping down while still saying the case is winnable only add more attention to an already intense situation. What makes this even harder to process is the timeline. Pooh Shiesty was released in October 2025 after serving his prior sentence. He came out with momentum, music still performing, fan support still strong, and a real chance at a second run. Then just a few months later, he's back in a federal case that now threatens a potential life sentence. Whether he wins or loses, the stakes are extremely high, and the legal battle ahead is far from simple. Right now, Pooh Shiesty remains in custody. His former attorney is out of the case, and a new defense team is stepping in to take on what is shaping up to be one of the most difficult fights in his career. We'll keep watching as this develops.